Welcome to Satan is My Superhero. In this episode, we grapple with the huge, throbbing phallus of Christian fragility, engorged and swollen with an urgent pressure it must release.
Oh dear, this is off to a weird start.
But first, we should ask ourselves the question, did Jesus hate women?
'Cause his followers sure do.
I have argued in the past, Jesus as represented in the Gospels doesn't come across as overtly misogynistic. But while there are prominent women in his story, there are no DEI pics in the disciples.
No girls allowed.
Progressive apologists will find some places in the text where women are treated slightly better than farm animals. They'll claim this is a hollow victory, but the examples of misogyny outnumber the allegedly feminist verses 10-1.
Actual numbers may vary.
Trouble for women begins very early in the Holy Book, right at the start, in fact. So after the whole eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil incident, Yahweh is handing out punishments, and Genesis gives us,
"Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee."
I like humans who don't get tricked by serpents.
2nd and 3rd century Christian blogger Tertullian wrote to all women,
"You are the devil's gateway. You are the unsealer of the tree. You are the first deserter of the divine law."
Tertullian sounds like the first INCEL.
Why can't I get a date on a Saturday night?
4th century Bishop of Milan Ambrose wrote,
"Though the man was created outside paradise, an inferior place, he is found to be superior, while woman, though created in a better place, inside paradise, is found inferior."
There is at least one thing women are superior to men at: jumping over barbed wire fences naked.
Me nerds, me precious nerds!
Ambrose also said,
"Because that death did enter into the world by her, there is no boldness that ought to be permitted unto her, but she ought to be in humility."
Hear that, ladies? You should be ashamed of yourselves for that story made up by men.
I don't understand why you're getting so upset.
Seriously? You have no idea? You don't feel the slightest bit guilty for what you have done? Bringing death to man? Opening the gates of hell and unleashing the beast upon us?
Sir, this is a Wendy's. What would you like to order?
4th century Christian nonsense proliferator John Chrysostom wrote this of women,
"Because thou left him, of whose nature thou wast participant, and for whom thou wast formed, and hast had pleasure to have familiarity with that wicked beast, and would take his counsel, therefore I subject thee to man, and I appoint and affirm him to be thy Lord, and thou mayest acknowledge his dominion, and because thou couldst not bear rule, learn well to be ruled."
In other words,
fuck around and find out.
4th and 5th century Christian influencer St. Augustine wrote,
I cannot think of any reason for woman's being made as man's helper, if we dismiss the reason for procreation.
on behalf of my female lady sisters everywhere, I am offended. There's lots of uses for women. You got laundry, cooking, cleaning, killing spiders in the bathtub, rubbing out ouchies, remembering family members' birthdays.
Are you finished?
I've made my point.
I'm glad you think so. 800 years later, Christian thinking had progressed to Thomas Aquinas, who wrote,
The good of order would have been wanting in the human family if some were not governed by others wiser than themselves. So, by such a kind of subjection, woman is naturally subject to man, because in man the discernment or reason predominates.
Isn't Thomas Aquinas the dude who chased a sex worker away with a burning log before inscribing a cross on his wall and falling into a trance?
Yes, and then angels gifted him the
Girdle of chastity!
He then wore that
Girdle of chastity!
for the rest of his life. So when Thomas Aquinas says,
in man the discernment or reason predominates.
I'm assuming he means other men, not him personally.
I also had a
Girdle of chastity!
in my teen years.
Yeah, it's called your personality. Just before we move on, that story is related in his canonization records. Chasing a sex worker with a burning log is the prelude to one of the miracles required to become a saint.
Be away from me, evil harlot! I carry the burning log of repressed sexuality.
And the alleged
Girdle of chastity!
still exists and is held as a holy relic in a church in northern Italy.
It's smaller than you would expect.
How disappointing.
In his 15th century treatise,
Rules of Marriage.
the sworn to a life of celibacy and therefore obviously an expert on women and relationships, Franciscan Friar Cherubino of Siena wrote,
Scold her sharply, bully, and terrify her. And if this still doesn't work, take up a stick and beat her soundly, for it is better to punish the body and correct the soul than to damage the soul and spare the body. Then readily beat her, not in rage, but out of charity and concern for her soul, so that the beating will redound to your merit and her good.
As much as we would rather otherwise, it looks like Cherubino died of natural causes at the age of 70. But I like to imagine it went more like this.
Hey, Cherubino.
Oh, hello ladies. What are you doing out of the kitchen? Not my nads! My nads! My precious nads!
500 years after Cherubino, rape apologist Douglas Wilson published the book
Fidelity. How to be a one-woman man.
In it, he wrote,
The sexual act cannot be made into an egalitarian pleasuring party. A man penetrates, conquers, colonizes, plants. A woman receives, surrenders, accepts.
Bleh, I might not ever have sex again.
He further exposed himself with
True authority and true submission are therefore an erotic necessity.
I think we all know what rape apologist Pastor Douglas Wilson is into.
no sketch?
Nope.
You tried though, didn't you?
I wrote like 10.
Too rapey?
And not even that funny.
Surprising.
I know, right?
In her 2005 book, The Feminist Mistake, The Radical Impact of Feminism on Church and Culture, Professor Mary Kassian of the Southern Baptist Seminary wrote, Women grow up thinking that the essence of womanhood is the exercise of personal power, including sexual power.
I'm with you, Professor Mary. Who do these uppity bitches think they are, choosing when, where, how, and with whom they have sex? It's certainly not any kind of world I want to live in.
When women have a choice, they don't choose me.
Kassian also claims women have been taught to be loud, brass, sexual, aggressive, independent, and demanding. They have been trained to value education, high-powered careers, and earning potential, and to devalue the home, marriage, and children.
Mummy, what if when I grow up, being a mediocre white man is no longer enough to dominate society?
Don't worry, son. Christianity has got your back. In 2012, in response to a conservative furor over Obamacare funding birth control, Susan Brooks Thistlethwaite wrote this in the Washington Post.
This attack on women is, and I am grieved to say it, driven by a particular Christian theological perspective that denigrates women and holds them responsible for sin, particularly sexual sin. GOP politics today is, in fact, all about Eve.
Just imagine how much better the world would be if Eve had never eaten that apple.
Yeah, for a start, you wouldn't fucking exist.
In his 2018 book,
The Great Reckoning, Surviving a Christianity That Looks Nothing Like Christ.
Piss off, Jesus! No one wants you here!
Stephen Mattson wrote,
Toxic religiosity, often branded as Christianity, has socialized its adherents to dehumanize women.
The female lady woman, or to use the scientific nomenclature, bitches from the evilest bitches clade, should be found in her natural environment, the kitchen.
Mattson also wrote,
American Christianity has been a horrible place for women. It ignores them, abuses them, assaults them, objectifies them, oppresses them, and then attempts to theologically rationalize it all as being biblical and holy. The church has been a willing co-conspirator in the widespread affliction of women.
Hey, Pastor, we're off to abuse some women.
Okay, you do that. I'll take care of the young boys.
In a 2020 post on her website, The Transformed Wife, Laurie Alexander defended her position on divorce, claiming, I have never written that women should tolerate physical abuse.
Oh, cool. So it is okay for a woman to leave an abusive man. I had Alexander pegged as some kind of disgusting, human-hating misanthrope who belongs to and advocates for the delusional guidance of an evil death cult. My apologies, Laurie Alexander.
Not so quick. There's more.
There always is.
Alexander then talks about emotional and mental abuse, saying, we must define what abuse means.
Ooh, that's not good.
Alexander explains the stupid young crybaby girl should seek the counsel of an older hag who can tell her she's not being abused, followed by this gem. It's not a biblical reason to divorce one's husband. I know of a woman who is definitely being emotionally abused, but through the wise counsel of a godly older woman, she is able to bear it and even now thrive.
The abuse is actually good for her? Who hurt you, Laurie?
A pretty girl made fun of me. In 2020, future Oklahoma Senator and U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance was on wholly credible, lauded, and much respected Eric Weinstein's podcast.
Absolutely no one thinks any of those things about Eric Weinstein.
People know when I'm being sarcastic.
Do they?
On Weinstein's incredible, thought-provoking, mind-expanding, paradigm-shifting podcast.
Okay, now people know you're being sarcastic.
Vance waxed lyrical about how helpful his mother-in-law had been with the kids. And what a wonderful influence grandparents can be, to which Weinstein said,
That's the whole purpose of the postmenopausal female, in theory.
And the future vice president agreed.
Oh wow, Professor Weinstein, you're amazing.
Oh, shucks, but please call me Mr. Weinstein.
But Professor...
No, seriously, you can't call me Professor for legal reasons.
Mr. Weinstein, when you're not assessing the point of different people, do you use your incredible intellect for anything else?
Well, it just so happens I have a theory that explains the entire universe.
That's amazing. Where did you publish your paper?
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Oh.
So if we accept the purpose of postmenopausal women is as child carers, what is the purpose of old white men?
Mistaking their childish obsessions for expertise and leveraging that falsely acquired confidence into an irrelevant, unpopular podcast.
Hey, not cool.
In 2021, J.D. Vance described the leadership of the Democrats as
a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of their country miserable too.
Credit where credit's due.
It was an original pitch for the largely untapped dog owner vote.
You'll have to pry my dog leash from my cold dead hand.
Vance isn't alone in this milieu of white supremacist Christian nationalist incels. In his 2022 book,
The Case for Christian Nationalism,
in a chapter titled Gynocracy, William Wolfe writes,
The most insane and damaging sociological trends of our modern society are female-driven.
That's why society is covered in little scratches and dents, because lady drivers and parking.
And that was the day Judas had his balls kicked so hard they went all the way up through his own ribcage.
Ah, me nerds! Oh, me precious nerds!
in a chapter titled Dominion, Wolfe writes,
If you are a white, heterosexual, cisgendered male, then the world will not offer you any favors. Indeed, your career advancement depends on sacrificing your self-respect by praising and pandering to the inferiors who rule over you.
I'm not saying William Wolfe wrote an incel manifesto. This guy is.
William Wolfe wrote an incel manifesto.
In February 2024, Oklahoma State Senator Dusty Devers introduced a bill to take care of that pesky Me Too movement.
For far too long now, these victims of abuse have had it too easy.
I'm a Christian! He explained his bill like this.
Essentially, if you are a malicious witness and you knowingly, willingly lie about someone and charge them with something, then whatever the punishment they would have received, you're going to receive.
Devers claims this eye for an eye approach to the judicial system is biblical. In Deuteronomy, we find this.
And the judges shall make diligent inquisition. And behold, if the witness be a false witness, and hath testified falsely against his brother, then shall ye do unto him as he had thought to have done unto his brother. So shalt thou put the evil away from among you.
So, he's not wrong. I mean, he is wrong, but not about the source.
What was the title of his law? Snitches get stitches?
Well, following along with Devers' logic, in October 2024, Texas pastor Joel Webbin performed a sermon where he claimed that in a death penalty case, a false accuser would get the death penalty.
Fuck around and find out.
Then, after stating in a death penalty case, a false accuser would get the death penalty, Webbin made this strange leap of logic.
And that's a public death. It's a public sentence publicly carried out. Then the citizens of these United States of America, you know what they would do? #MeToo would end real fast. False accusing, playing the victim when you're actually not. You know how to end that real fast? All you have to do is publicly execute a few women who've lied.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
But the sentence for sexual assault is not public execution.
Yeah, he couldn't keep his own proclivities down and then leapt to publicly executing alleged assault victims kind of out of nowhere.
It seems quite revealing.
Just let me kill a few women who have dirt on me and I'll get out of your hair.
I don't think Devers and Webbin are losing sleep every night, imagining an epidemic of thousands of innocent men across America being falsely accused by soulless sirens.
What's wrong, Dusty? You've been tossing and turning all night.
I just can't stop thinking, what if Bill Cosby is innocent?
Even if he didn't commit those particular crimes, he's definitely guilty of something.
How do you know?
Just look at him.
Oh, I didn't think of that. Thank you, dear.
These Christians want to create an environment where it becomes highly risky for victims to speak out. I think it's pretty obvious why. Excuse me, officer, I need to report a crime.
False accuser says what?
What?
Ah, lock her up, boys. That's 3 today. When will these bitches learn?
When will the listeners learn? Subscribe, share, and give us 5 reviews. No, give us 5 5-star reviews. And give us 5 reviews, but make sure they're 5-star reviews. Come on, people, it's not that hard. Not like reading, apparently. Please give us a 5-star rating. It really helps.
What can we take away from the episode, They Hate Women? I think the answer is in the title. They hate women.
Tittle drop!
Let us now leave the final word up to one of us lesser humans that we've been talking about. A clone of the superior male. grown from a bone graft of the perfect image of Yahweh, yet corrupted by the decaying influence of this imperfect world.
Gross girl cooties.
On her Girl-Defined Ministries website in 2015, Christian Clark published a blog with the title,
Christianity and Feminism Can't Mix.
No, Christianity and feminism can't mix. One's a total killjoy death cult designed to oppress and disenfranchise, while the other's Christianity. See what I did there?
In Christianity and Feminism Can't Mix, Clark wrote,
At its root, feminism is built upon a foundation completely devoid of God. The feminist movement is woven with the same sin Satan committed in the beginning. A rebellious heart that pridefully says, I don't need you, God. Thanks, but I'll do things my way.
And that's why Satan is my superhero. Thank you so much for listening. Rate, review, subscribe, all that podcast stuff. But most of all, please give us money.
Go to patreon.com/Satan is my superhero.
If you join our Patreon at the Third Circle of Hell, you'll receive access to exclusive content like this.
You see? This is why I married a Christian. You get it.
I'm actually very brave and tough, and I'm a total alpha male. You can ask my mom.
I have with me the foreskin of baby Jesus. We can rub it on our eyelids if for some reason we are blinded.
Very good. You can never know what tribulations we may face.
I have the girdle of chastity in case we are overwhelmed by a legion of horny sluts.
A legion of horny sluts.
Joe couldn't believe the experts wanted to see equations, like Einstein had equations.
He did, actually. Lots of equations.
Yeah, but it's not like anyone could understand them.
Yeah.
When you think about it, Weinstein sounds just like Einstein.
Uh-huh.